Policeman ties a horse to the train track, and what the owner does will surprise you. Do you believe that one act of pure evil can change the fate of an entire city? Imagine waking up in the middle of the night to a desperate sound, the neighing of a panicked horse. Now imagine running to the window and seeing your companion, a being of light who has always brought tranquility and peace, tied to the train tracks, while the lights of a locomotive cut through the darkness, getting closer and closer. Who would do something so cruel, and why? When Jack Rivers discovers that the person responsible for this barbarity wears a uniform of authority, his life turns upside down. But that's just the tip of an iceberg of dark secrets that no one in Green Valley knew existed. What is behind this terrible act? And how far will Jack go to discover the truth? This is not just a story of revenge. It is a journey of overcoming, emotion, and the transformative power of kindness that even the simplest of beings can carry. You will be surprised by the strength of this horse and the impact he has on the lives of those around him. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and share this story that will touch the hearts of many people. Let's unravel this mystery together and be inspired by the strength of those who don't give up fighting. Click play now and join this journey full of tension and twists. The deafening sound of the train whistle echoed through the small town of Green Valley. But that wasn't what made Jack Rivers' heart freeze. It was the desperate neighing of Thunder, his faithful, four-legged companion, that roused him from his sleep in the middle of the night. How could a horse be so close to the tracks in the quiet, rural Arizona town where everyone knew everyone by name? This question tormented Jack as he ran to the window. His eyes widened when he saw the scene under the moonlight. Thunder, tied to the train tracks, struggled in panic. At the same moment, something caught his attention even more. The silhouette of a person was quickly moving away from the place. Under the moonlight, Jack recognized the uniform. He was a police officer. The blood boiled in his veins. He hastily donned his boots and bolted out of the house. The train was approaching, its light cutting through the darkness like a grim warning that time was running out. As he ran, 1,000 questions invaded his mind. Why would someone do something so cruel? How could a police officer be involved in something like this? What had Thunder done to deserve such brutality? The sound of the train became deafening. With each step, the ground shook beneath his feet, and Thunder's desperate neighs seemed closer and closer. Jack, I knew there was no room for hesitation. Time was against him. The only certainty he had was that night he would face the unknown, and the truth could be scarier than he imagined. And you, what would you do if you were in Jack's place? Adrenaline pumped through his veins as he ran towards the tracks. The noise of the train grew louder and louder, mixing with Thunder's desperate neighs. Jack knew he only had seconds. With trembling hands, he struggled against the knots that held his beloved horse. Sweat ran down his face, mixing with tears of despair. The ground shook beneath their feet as the locomotive quickly approached. In a last, superhuman effort, Jack managed to free the ropes and, with a desperate yank, he and Thunder rolled off the tracks, landing on the grass seconds before the train sped by. Only the wind and the echo of its passage remained. Panting and still shaking, Jack hugged Thunder's neck, feeling the animal's heart beating as fast as his own. As he stroked the horse to calm him down, something else grew inside him, an uncontrollable fury. Who was that police officer? Why had he done something so cruel? More importantly, how would Jack get justice? Under the starry sky, which seemed indifferent to his anguish, Jack made a promise to himself and Thunder. He would uncover the truth behind that cruel act and make whoever was responsible pay, no matter the cost. But Jack had no idea that this promise would lead him into an even deeper abyss. His quest for justice would unravel a web of corruption and cruelty that extended far beyond that fateful night. He was about to enter a world where the lines between right and wrong blurred dangerously. When the sun began to rise, Jack was already up. His eyes were red, marked by a sleepless night, but his determination was stronger than his fatigue. He stroked Thunder's muzzle, which seemed calmer, but Jack knew that the invisible scars from that trauma would take time to heal. Green Valley, with its cobblestone streets and colonial mansions, was beginning to awaken. The aroma of fresh bread from Sue Rocky's bakery mixed with the smell of coffee coming from the windows of the houses. On another occasion, Jack would have enjoyed the comfort of the familiar city routine, but this morning everything seemed to carry a somber weight. As he walked through the central square, he felt the furtive glances of the residents. Mrs. Thompson, the town's official gossiper, whispered excitedly to her friends while casting curious glances in their direction. Jack wondered if what had happened the night before had already spread or if it was just paranoia growing inside him. Then he spotted Sheriff Ryan Stone, a burly man with a bushy mustache, standing in the doorway of the station. Their eyes met, and Jack felt a chill run down his spine. There was something in the deputy's eyes that made him uncomfortable, as if he knew more than he should. "Good morning, Jack," called the deputy, his deep voice echoing in the almost empty street. "I heard you had a busy night. Are you and your animals okay?" Jack hesitated. He weighed each word before responding. "All right, deputy. It was just a misunderstanding." Ryan's smile seemed forced, without any warmth. "Well, if you need anything, you know where to find me." As the deputy walked away, Jack felt a mixture of relief and uneasiness. Did Ryan know more than he let on? Was he involved or just testing Jack's reactions? Every step Jack took through the streets of Green Valley heightened his sense that something bigger was at stake. What began as a nightmarish night was about to turn into a battle for justice that would change not only his life, but the fate of the entire city. As he walked away, Jack couldn't help but notice how Deputy Ryan's words sounded more like a veiled threat than an offer of help. Something about the delegate's tone and look bothered him deeply, but he knew that, for now, it was better not to raise suspicions. At the corner coffee shop, Jack met Mary Oliver, his childhood friend and journalist for the small local newspaper. Mary's brown eyes sparkled with concern as she saw Jack's haggard state. "My God, Jack, you look like you've seen a ghost," she exclaimed, pulling out a chair for him to sit on. Jack hesitated before telling him about the previous night's events. His voice was low, as if he feared even the walls could hear. Mary listened attentively, her eyes widening at every detail of the narrative. "A police officer? Are you sure about this, Jack?" she asked, leaning on the table and lowering her voice. "Absolutely," he replied firmly, with a tone full of bitterness. "I saw the uniform. But why would a police officer do that? And even worse, how will I prove it?" Mary bit her lip thoughtfully before answering, "Look, Jack, I've been hearing rumors. Illegal betting, animal fights. Nothing confirmed, of course. But it's possible that it's all connected." Mary's words sparked a spark of understanding in Jack. Flashbacks of whispered conversations at the horse fair, suspicious looks exchanged between certain police officers and local farmers, it all started to make terrible sense. "Mari, I need your help," Jack said, leaning forward with intensity. "We need to investigate this. Jack, this could be dangerous, if there really are police involved. That's why we need to do something," he insisted. "Who else is going to do it?" The silence between them was broken when the door to the coffee shop opened, and Charlie Mason, the town veterinarian, entered. His eyes met Jack's, and he approached with a smile that seemed more forced than warm. "Jack, it's good to see you," Charlie said, his voice low. "I heard about the incident with Thunder. If you need me to take a look at it, just call me." Jack studied Charlie's face, a man he had known for years. They were friends, but for the first time Jack wondered if he really knew who Charlie was. Could he be involved? Or just trying to help? Doubt gnawed at Jack inside. Every person in Green Valley, once so familiar, now seemed to carry a secret, a piece of a dark puzzle that he needed to unravel. Jack. He knew that this battle for justice was just beginning, and that he couldn't trust anyone blindly. "Thanks, Charlie," Jack replied, keeping his voice neutral. "Thunder." "Okay, but I'll let you know if I need to." When Charlie left, Jack and Mary exchanged meaningful glances. The circle of trust around them seemed to shrink every day, and the feeling of isolation began to take its toll. Outside the coffee shop, life in Green Valley continued at its usual pace. Children ran to school, merchants opened their shops, and the old church bell tolled, marking the time. But for Jack, the city he had always called home now seemed like a minefield of secrets and betrayal. As he watched the quiet movement of the street, Jack made a silent promise to himself. He would get to the bottom of this story, no matter the cost. The truth needed to come out, and those responsible would have to pay. His quest for justice and revenge was just beginning, and he knew Green Valley would never be the same. The days that followed were a real whirlwind. With every step Jack took, it seemed like a new layer of secrets was being revealed, as if the entire city was wrapped up in a conspiracy that he was barely beginning to understand. Jack and Mary decided to investigate discreetly, aware that they were dealing with something much bigger than they initially imagined. At night, they met in the local newspaper office, where Anna Mitchell used documents and tried to connect the dots of a disturbing puzzle. "Look at this, Jack," Mary whispered one night, pointing to a stack of financial reports in front of her. "There are a series of suspicious transfers to an offshore account. They all coincide with the dates of horse fairs in the region." Jack, he frowned, examining the numbers. Something there wasn't right. "And all these transfers go through Deputy Ryan's account," said Mary, her voice full of tension. Jack's stomach dropped. His suspicions about the police chief began to take shape. Ryan wasn't just an authoritative figure in the town. He could be a key player in a scheme much bigger and more dangerous than anyone could imagine. During the day, Jack tried to maintain normalcy, caring for his horses and participating in the routine activities of Green Valley. But his eyes were always alert, watching every movement and carefully collecting information. One night, while they were working in the newsroom, a sudden sound made them both freeze. The sound of the wind hitting the window was common, but at that moment it was enough to remind them both of the risk they were taking. "Mary." He took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. "We need to be even more cautious, Jack. If we're right, it's not just some people's reputations that are at stake. It's our security." Jack. He agreed with a silent nod, but his determination only grew. Each piece of the puzzle brought him closer to the truth, but also made him realize he was facing something big, perhaps bigger than he could handle alone. Still, he had no choice. The promise made under the stars that night beside Thunder echoed in his mind like an oath he couldn't break. Jack. He felt the world spin for an instant. Anna Mitchell's words seemed to echo in his mind, mixing anger, disbelief, and fear. "Drugs?" he whispered, trying to process the information. "Are you sure about this?" Anna Mitchell, he nodded, his face pale and his eyes full of terror. "I overheard conversations in Charlie's office. They talked about shipments and routes. I didn't understand everything at the time, but now it makes sense. They are using the horses to transport drugs between cities. And Jack." She hesitated, as if the next words were too difficult to say. Thunder was on the list. Jack, he felt his blood boil. The name of Thunder, your horse, involved in something so dirty and cruel? He clenched his fists, trying to contain the fury rising in waves. "Why are you telling me this now, Anna Mitchell?" he asked, his voice low but full of intensity. Anna Mitchell. He looked around again, as if afraid someone might hear them. "Because I can't keep watching this happen. They are hurting the horses, using them as disposable tools. Charlie is up to his neck in it, but he's not the only one. Deputy Ryan is behind everything. He coordinates the routes and ensures that no one interferes." Jackie felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. Ryan, the deputy, wasn't just corrupt. He was the center of a criminal operation. And what's worse, he was using his position of authority to cover up his own crimes. "Anna Mitchell, do you have proof?" asked Mary, who had remained silent until that moment. Anna Mitchell shook his head quickly. "Not many. I only heard conversations and saw some documents when Charlie left the room unlocked. But—" She paused and with shaking hands took a flash drive out of her pocket. "I managed to copy some files from his computer. Hope this helps." Jack. He picked up the flash drive carefully, as if it were the most valuable piece of a deadly puzzle. "Thank you, Anna Mitchell. You did the right thing," he said, looking into the young woman's eyes. "I hope so," Anna Mitchell replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But be careful. They are dangerous. I don't know what else they're capable of." That night, Jack and Mary examined the contents of the flash drive in secret. What they found was disturbing. Emails exchanged between Charlie, Ryan, and other unknown names, detailing transportation routes, merchandise values, and even payments made into offshore accounts. The operation was much bigger than Jack imagined. "That's enough to expose everything," Mary said, trying to remain calm even though her hands were shaking. "But if we make this public, they will come after us." Jack. He squinted at the laptop screen. He knew Mary was right. Those men would not hesitate to destroy anyone who stood in their way. "We will not back down," he said finally, "but we need a plan, something that takes them by surprise." Before they could take the next step, tragedy knocked on Jack's door again. The smell of smoke and the orange glow in the night sky were the first signs. When he ran outside, he saw his ranch engulfed in flames. Firefighters were on their way, but the fire consumed everything quickly. Jack led the efforts to save the horses, shouting orders and guiding the animals out of the inferno. Mary was at his side, helping as best she could, tears streaking her soot-stained face. "Are all the animals outside?" asked Mary in a desperate voice. Before Jack could respond, a desperate whinny echoed through the burning stable. "No! There's still one left!" Jack shouted, running inside without thinking twice. The heat was unbearable, and the smoke burned his eyes and lungs. He followed the sound of neighing until he found the horse trapped in the wreckage. With superhuman effort, Jack managed to free him, and together they left the stable seconds before the roof collapsed. Outside, as Jack tried to catch his breath, he saw the neighbors whispering and exchanging furtive glances. Mrs. Thompson's words reached him. "I heard it was revenge. Jack is messing with dangerous people." "Nothing," replied another woman. "I bet he did it himself to get the insurance." "Mary," he intervened quickly, his voice full of indignation. "Ladies, please, Jack is the victim here. He almost died trying to save the animals." The women fell silent, but Mary knew the rumors would continue. Public opinion was dividing, and this could be even more dangerous for Jack. As he looked at the wreckage of the ranch, Jack felt the fury rising again. This wasn't just an attack. It was a message. "They want to intimidate me," he said, his voice firm. "But they just gave me one more reason to fight." And at that moment, he knew he couldn't go back. The truth had to come out, and those responsible would pay the price. The silence that followed was dense, filled with shock and indignation. Jack felt his world fall apart. Everything he believed in, his trust in his community, his neighbors, even his closest friends, seemed to crumble before his eyes. "How did you find out about all this, Anna Mitchell?" asked Mary, her voice a mix of admiration and concern. Anna Mitchell. She lowered her eyes, visibly nervous. "I heard Dr. Charlie talking. He never realized I was around. But when I heard it all, I couldn't pretend I didn't know. I was afraid to speak before." Her voice trailed off, and she swallowed hard. "Now I think they already suspect me. I need to hide at an aunt's house in another city." Jack, he nodded, understanding the danger everyone was in. "Thank you for trusting us, Anna Mitchell. I promise we will do justice." As night fell, Jack headed to the old mill, a place that was once a tourist spot but was now abandoned and forgotten. Its large wooden blades creaked ominously in the wind. His heart hammered in his chest as he approached the scene. In the shadows, he noticed furtive movements. Suddenly, intense lights came on, momentarily blinding him. When his eyes adjusted, Jack realized he was surrounded. Deputy Ryan was there, along with Charlie and 3 other unknown men. Ryan's expression was cold, almost mocking. "Well, Jack, you've made your choice," Ryan said, his voice echoing in the silence of the night. "It is a shame. We really liked your horses." Before Jack could respond, the sound of sirens cut through the air. Blue and red lights flashed on the horizon, illuminating the area around the mill. "This is the FBI," announced an amplified voice. "The place is surrounded. Drop your weapons and come out with your hands up." Chaos took over. Ryan and his men tried to run, but soon found themselves cornered by armed officers. Charlie was quickly immobilized while Ryan resisted, shouting threats and curses. Jack watched everything in a daze, unable to believe what was happening. Days later, with Ryan, Charlie, and the others involved arrested, Green Valley began to breathe new air. The case gained national attention, and investigations spread to other cities and states. Politicians resigned, a judge was removed, and the web of corruption and cruelty was dismantled. However, Jack knew that the wounds in the community would take time to heal. One morning, while walking through the central square, he noticed that the residents' gazes had changed. Where there was once distrust, there was now respect, and on many faces, shame. Mrs. Thompson, the town gossip, approached him with tears in her eyes. "Jack, my son, forgive me," she said, her voice breaking. "I said horrible things about you. How could we be so blind?" Jack, he smiled, tired but genuine. He placed a hand on the lady's shoulder. "Don't worry, Mrs. Thompson. We all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn and move forward." Mary also received recognition. On a visit to the new stable Jack was building, she was greeted by locals who had previously only seen her as the curious journalist. Jack made a point of reminding her, "Without you, we might never have made it. You were brave." Mary, he smiled, but still carried a feeling of guilt for not having reported the suspicious activity sooner. "We did the right thing at the right time, Jack. That's what matters." Sitting on the porch of his rebuilt house, Jack looked up at the stars, reflecting on everything that had happened. Green Valley would never be the same, but maybe that was a good thing. The change, although painful, was necessary. In the distance, thunder's soft neigh broke the silence of the night. Jack closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the cool wind on his face. Despite everything, there was hope. And that night, he decided that he would continue fighting for what was fair. After all, true strength was never giving up, even when everything seemed lost. The battle for Green Valley's soul was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, the future looked bright. The following months brought a profound transformation for Jack and the city. Jack always believed that real heroes rarely saw themselves as such. But upon hearing Mary's words, he realized what really mattered. The important thing is that you followed your values, even when it was difficult. That's true courage. Meanwhile, Green Valley was going through its own changes. The city's new administration, determined to clean up the municipality's image, implemented a series of transparency and popular participation measures. Jack was asked to lead an ethics committee on animal husbandry and care, a position that initially made him apprehensive. However, he soon dedicated himself passionately to the cause, sharing his experiences with young students and emphasizing the importance of integrity in the profession. As his work gained recognition, Jack was invited to give lectures in other cities. At first nervous about the idea of public speaking, he soon discovered that his passion for animals and his personal story captivated audiences. During one of these talks, Jack met Helen Clark, a lawyer specializing in animal rights. The connection between them was immediate. Soon, Jack realized that his true revenge would not be on those who wronged him, but on the positive transformation he was helping to bring about. "Come on, buddy," Jack said, stroking Thunder's neck. "We still have a lot of work to do." As he rode back to his farm, Jack felt a peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. Not only had he survived the storm, but he had emerged stronger, wiser, and, above all, true to his values. His journey of overcoming was now a testimony to the strength of determination and the fight against corruption. However, the calm was interrupted when Mary came to him, visibly worried. "Jack, that's incredible," she said, her face serious. "But why did you call me here? Shouldn't this go straight to the FBI?" Mary hesitated, her gaze serious. "Jack, among the documents, there are threats against both of us, against Helen Clark, against anyone who dares to expose this." The tension in the air was palpable. Jack felt his heart speed up. He knew this moment could change everything again. "What do you want to do?" he asked, his voice tense. "Publish," Mary replied without hesitation. "But not only that. We will coordinate simultaneous dissemination in several vehicles. This will make it harder for them to hush up the story." As he listened to the two women plan, Jack felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. He knew that his role in this new battle would be crucial. "We can mobilize the Green Valley community," Jack said. "If we show a united front, it will be harder to intimidate us." As the day progressed, the tension only increased. Jack's battle was far from over, and he knew that now, more than ever, the fight for truth and justice would require courage, unity, and, above all, the strength to continue, no matter the cost. Jack received calls from friends and people in Green Valley, all feeling like something big was about to happen. "Let's do this," he said, his voice firm, "for truth, justice, and a better future." Mary nodded, took a deep breath, and clicked the button. Within seconds, the story exploded onto the internet, setting off a chain of events that none of them could have completely predicted. The final battle for the soul of not just Green Valley, but the entire state, was about to begin. Chaos ensued in the hours following the publication of the article. Social networks went into overdrive. News channels began broadcasting the story, and finally, Ryan, the deputy, appeared. His normally confident face showed clear signs of tension. He began with his rehearsed speech, denying all accusations and claiming to be the victim of a political conspiracy. It was then that Jack felt something shift in the air. A movement at the back of the room caught his attention. To his amazement, he saw Charlie, his old friend and veterinarian, entering accompanied by Agent Sam Hernandez. Oblivious to the new presence, Ryan continued his fiery speech. "These accusations are unfounded, created by a gang action." The room exploded into chaos. Flashes went off incessantly. Reporters shouted questions. In the middle of all this, Jack saw Mendonça being handcuffed and taken away. His empire of lies was crumbling on camera. Mary, with tears in her eyes, hugged Jack. "We did it! We really did it!" Helen Clark, always practical, was already on the phone. We need an official statement. This will be international news." As the dust began to settle, Jack found himself face to face with Charlie. The silence between them was heavy. It was impossible to ignore the betrayal that had taken place. Charlie, his longtime friend, had been part of the corrupt system, but the truth was now clear. Weeks after the turbulent press conference, Jack rode with thunder through the green fields surrounding the city. Stopping at the top of a hill, he gazed at Green Valley in the distance. The city felt different now, as if an invisible weight had been lifted. In that moment, Jack understood that his journey, which had begun with an act of cruelty against his horse, had turned into something much greater. He was no longer just Jack Rivers, the horse breeder. He had become a symbol of change, resistance, and redemption. "Jack," Mary said, handing him a coffee, "it's still strange to think that you were elected mayor of Green Valley." Jack's election had been one of many positive changes the city had experienced. His platform of transparency, ethics, and sustainable development had won the hearts of residents. "You deserve it," said Mary with a sincere smile. "No one fought harder for this city than you." At that moment, Helen Clark arrived carrying a briefcase. "Good news," she announced. "The Animal Protection Bill was approved." Jack smiled, nuzzling Thunder's neck. "This horse, which I almost lost to cruelty and corruption, is here today as a reminder. A reminder that with determination and compassion, we can overcome any obstacle." Jack continued to outline his vision for the future of Green Valley. He spoke of a city that would be an example of ethical governance, sustainable development, and harmony between humans and nature. As he concluded his speech, Jack looked into the eyes of every person in the crowd. "The road ahead will not be easy," he said, "but together we will continue the fight. Green Valley is our home, and we all have a role to play." A group of children passed by, waving excitedly to the mayor of horses. Jack smiled, knowing that the seed of change he had planted would continue to grow in future generations. Dear viewers, Jack Rivers' journey shows us that the courage of one individual can change the destiny of an entire community. What lessons do you take from this story for your own life? How can each of us make a difference in our communities? Don't let this story be lost, as it reminds us that, with determination, we can build a better future for everyone. At every step of his journey, Jack taught us a powerful lesson: the love we have for our community, for the beings around us, and for justice is what gives us the strength to face adversity. He showed us that true courage is not in fighting against others, but in fighting alongside our values for what is right, even when the path seems unbearable. Each of us has a responsibility to confront the injustices that surround us, to protect the vulnerable, to be a voice for those who cannot speak. The love for truth, life, and justice is what moves us. Like Jack, we have the power to transform our reality, and when we come together, our strength is immeasurable. I thank each and every one of you who followed this story this far. If this message touched your heart, if you believe that together we can make a difference, be sure to strengthen this channel. Subscribe, like, and share with those who also believe in the importance of fighting for a better world. Let's continue this journey together. The journey for justice and love never ends, and together we can achieve a future where kindness and truth prevail.